temptation, as was the temptation of Jesus at certain times. Remember, he was tempted in the wilderness, and he was tempted in the Garden of Gethsemane. However, here Paul is saying it's not as if we might be more tempted even more than Jesus, as we see in Hebrews 4. So death just might be your only option. For example, if some Muslim comes up to you and says, deny Christ or die, might be your only option. But death is still a live option in that situation, as paradoxical as that might sound. Also, I don't think Jesus ever had the option of lying. So I suspect his mother knew that quite well. So if his mother asked him if a certain dress made her look fat, then I think he told her the truth. But all humor aside, let's take a look at some textual criticism here. Criticism that questions why the better manuscripts, we've been referring to P46 a lot, and others say testing Christ, instead of testing God in verse 9. That seems odd. A highly unlikely nuance. Where was Christ here in the Old Testament? Where was Christ there in the Old Testament wilderness, to be more specific? Well, Christ was that destroying angel of verse 10 that's spoken of here. Yeah, you have a problem with that? Then you should remember that Christ was always the angel of the Lord. The angel of the Lord. And your Wikipedia is screwed up there. He was not just an angel of the Lord, but the angel of the Lord. And even though our manuscripts never even mention angel here, and I'm thankful that our NIV does, it is still very helpful description. It is a pretty clear reference to the destroyer of Exodus 12, a reference to the angel of God, the cloud that we heard about in the service this morning. The cloud that moved with the camp of Israel, that moved that camp around and around in that infernal wilderness for 40 years. So, back to some more textual criticism here. A discrepancy in numbers. One that might puzzle you if you've ever read Numbers, the book of Numbers. Numbers 25, chapter 25 to be exact. Where Numbers 25 says that 24,000 people died as a result of their sexual immorality. Whereas Paul mentions 23,000. Wait a minute, something wrong here in verse 8. There's a difference of 1,000 people, and that's not a small difference. However, according to our Herald Mirror, he says Numbers 25 verse 4 indicates that a bunch of leaders were executed afterwards. So there's the big difference. There's the major discrepancy. Next, let's take a look at a very minor discrepancy in Numbers. This time, nearly everyone seems united in calling verse 1 of the upcoming chapter 11 as belonging to the final verse of this chapter 10. And that's no big deal either. But it would help in your interpretation of Paul setting an example. Setting an example of trying to please everyone in every way, which is something that Paul addressed last chapter, which is another statement that can only be seen as hyperbole. A statement that only has a very general ring of truth to it, since pleasing absolutely everyone would invariably involve sinning. And to that end, I don't think Paul would lie by saying that dress does not make you look fat, especially if it does. I don't think Paul would be afraid of the wrath of Jael. Okay, as illustrated below. See our illustration. This Jael here. Okay. We're going to teach you the story of Jael, because you probably don't know about it. Oh, look, check out Hammer of Thor. Whoa! Hammer of Thor. I'm going to pass this around to you guys just so you get the thrill of handling the Hammer of Thor. Oh, sure. Play with this. Well, maybe the spike's too dangerous. Okay. We're going to do some situation ethics here, huh? Yeah. Like Fletcher and all those clowns who think they know their situation ethics. Okay. In Judges, we have Israel being wandering around, chased around by various kings. And here you've got this General Sisera, who's leading the charge against Israel. General Sisera. And then he's exhausted. And so he's running for his life, right? They're being defeated. General Sisera running around. He comes up to this tent. You know, okay, this looks safe. And Jael is at this tent. And she's going, oh, sure, come to my tent. It's safe here. I need to rest, General Sisera says. Oh, yeah, you may rest here. So she pours him a warm cup of milk. And he, sleepy time, warm milk. So while he's asleep, she picks up her hammer, pulls a tent peg out of her tent. Whack! Kills General Sisera. Was lying appropriate there? Who got the glory there? It was Jael. Did the Lord get the glory there? Did God get the glory? Or was it Jael? God could have worked through many circumstances. Was it necessary for Jael to pound this spike through his head? I suspect God could have gotten glory, much greater glory, through a different method.
Her reason was vengeance.
Yeah. So again, that is a situation where she lied. Was it endorsed? Was that lie endorsed? You might think so. I suspect it wasn't. So, to the concluding verses of Paul. Pleasing has its limits as well. Not everything is beneficial and not everything is constructive, contrary to what those Greeks would often boast. And our new NIV is so much better than the 1984 version on this verse. And now, as mentioned before, let's be mindful of that implicit loophole. Oh yeah, loopholes of pleasing everyone. Let's be mindful of that in the Lord clause that we spoke of earlier. A clause that was implicit in our previous chapter in verse 22. And a clause made quite explicit in verses 20 and 21 of this chapter. So, lying to please everyone or to please someone is not a live option, okay? Instead, place your faith in the one who offers you a way out of this wilderness. Place your faith in the way for the promised land, okay? Okay, small prayer. Dear Father, lead us not into temptation. For thine is the glory, forever and ever. Amen.